Welcome, my dear friends, comrades, and elders. This is our podcast discussing about the history of India, the cultural extent, and the way of life with the blend of geopolitics. This is our first episode, and it is an introductory part, so enjoy it. We have different versions. You know what? In India, there are two or three different versions. Some guys said that our land is from Atak in
To Katak.
Afghanistan,
Oh, Afghanistan.
and
I
some
say that
say
it's from Ankara to Japan.
I have three versions, and I will
There are
explain.
several versions of a geographical extent,
Sir,
and
even
I
in
hold
my
the
opinion, there are three versions. So,
I
but
hold the
each.
radical view that it's from Ankara to Japan.
Okay, but so let me explain what's the actual geographical position of India. So, as we are fans of Dugin's work, so first of all I will mention a key concept of Dugin, that it's called narod. Okay, so the narod is the backbone. It's what's actually our root. So if we go to our roots, our actual geographies from Balk in Afghanistan.
okay.
From Balk it starts, and actually Balk is actually not an Iranic name. It's actually a Sanskrit based name. It doesn't come from Iranic language. It comes from Sanskrit. And Balk actually, if you know about Behel people, right? They are Punjabi Brahmins,
Oh, I
right?
don't I don't knew it actually.
Actually Behels are Punjabi Brahmins, and the ancestor of Punjabis, that is, the for example in Afghanistan there used to live various Indic tribes like Kambojas. You have
Yeah,
heard them.
yeah.
So basically Kambojas and various other tribes that lived in those regions ultimately became the ancestors of modern day Punjabis. The Prakrit they used to speak became the modern day Punjabi language. So what happened is, when ultimately the Eastern Iranic peoples, that is the Pashtuns, their ancestors were Scythians, and they used to live in Central Asia. But when the Turks came from Siberia and annexed those regions, the Pashtuns then came to southwards, and they displaced those Indic people from Afghanistan. And those Indic people from Afghanistan ultimately shifted to eastern part of Indus. But there was a time when both parts of Indus actually belonged to India. That is historic India. So I will start India's geography from Balk, that is eastern part of Afghanistan, and and it ends in eastern part of Bangladesh. Actually, I mean at the border of Myanmar. That is the Jayantia Hills of Myanmar. And up north, it starts from I would say in Tarim Basin. That is even slightly north of Kashmir. That is in the border of modern day Tajikistan. It starts from Tarim Basin, and then it slowly covers Kailash Mountain, much of Tibetan area, half of Tibetan area, and then it ultimately goes southwards and ends in Sri Lanka and Maldives. This is
So,
the
so, so you are basically propagating the northern borders of Harshvardhana's empire because his empire was also from Hindu Kush and just covering it all from the
Yes, yes, bhai. It's both Harshavardhana, then also Pal Empire, and
yeah, yeah,
even Guptas also controlled that area. And if I'm not wrong, Mauryans under Ashoka also controlled that area.
yeah. Are Maurya Maurya's controlled too much of area.
Yes.
They even, they even controlled far
Even by I will name two dynasties. They were not Indian in origin. Like one is the Indo-Greek dynasty, and the other one is Kushan dynasty.
Kushan Empire.
Kushan Empire was Iranian, but they were North Indian based dynasties. They were outsiders, but they ruled from North India, and they also covered much of that region. I'm talking about pre-Islamic times. These were Buddhist dynasties, but they were from outsiders.
आपको मेनेंडर के बारे में एक पोस्ट भेजा था मैंने जिसमें मेनेंडर
Oh,
हमारी
by
भारत
one thing I want to
उसमें
by one thing I want to tell you. I mean, this Menander, Indo-Greek king. I mean, he had a debate with a Kashmiri monk. সেজান তোর মাইকটা একটু শব্দ করতেছি, একটু ইয়া কর।
but Kushan rulers they practice Buddhism and Shaivism, na?
By Buddhism and Shaivism, I mean you can differentiate those faiths in ancient times. I mean differentiating dharma is a very modern colonial concept, I would say.
Yeah, yeah,
It didn't exist back then. And
yeah, yeah.
especially when you're talking about Tantra has been always infused with Buddhism. So even though, some people would say, okay, Buddha is considered to be the eighth avatar of Lord Vishnu, but even after that, Buddhism has historically, been more infused with Shaivism than Vaishnavism historically. Because if you look at all the dynasties and all the great dynasties of India, who ruled much of India, much of what we call Akhand Bharat, were in fact Buddhist in modern concept, in modern narrative, but they were also great patrons of Shaivism, because Shaivism and Buddhism has always existed together, and it was always infused with one another. For example, uh, Matsyendranath,
Huh?
you know about him.
Yes,
He was
yes,
he is actually Minapa in
yes,
Vajrayana Buddhist canon. He wrote Vajrayana Buddhist canon, and Vajrayana Buddhists call him Minapa in Tibet.
okay.
And then you have Luipa, then Sarahapa. They were also actually, uh, Natha yogis as well. So half of Vajrayana Buddhist gurus were actually, in fact, Natha yogis as well. So
Yeah,
the history is that inextricably linked. So
yeah,
well,
actually, yeah, actually, history is too much synchronized. But after the independence of India and the movement of Neo Buddhism, they are just trying to demarcate it, like they want to propagate that Ashoka was a Buddhist, and you know what? Their propaganda fails when they come to Harshvardhana, because Harshvardhana propagate he patronized both. He patronized Shaivism also. He patronized Buddhism also.
Bhai, the thing is, they say Ashoka is Buddhist in the sense that Ashoka only worshipped Buddha, but this is where they fail. The thing is, I want to say one thing. Bhai, just look at Western nationalists. Have you seen any Western nationalists claiming Plato was like Zeus? No. Have you seen any Western nationalist hating on Plato? No. Because Plato is a great teacher, and without studying Plato, you cannot understand Western, civilization or philosophy. It's not possible. And
Yes.
similarly to us, I hate to compare, but to us, we have to first see Plato and Western civilization, and we have to see Buddha and Indian civilization like this way.
Yeah, yeah,
Buddha
Yeah,
is Buddha is the founder of Indian civilization, just like the way Plato is the founder of Western civilization. And Buddha, we respected Buddha so much in our culture. We, make them deities. We see them as incarnations.
yeah.
This
Yes.
is form of our respect, and this happened in ancient times. But that doesn't mean they replaced any gods. And
Yes.
this is a great mistake that these neo Buddhists make.
Yes.
Even in ancient times, I want to tell you this, by even in ancient times, Greek used to worship Alexander, Plato, and even Roman emperors, Greek emperors as gods. But
Oh,
they were worshipped in a different way. These were called imperial cults. But they didn't replace Zeus. They didn't replace Athena. They didn't replace anyone. And similarly, this was the culture of India in ancient times as well.
yeah. See, the emperors and conquerors, they were deified as a form of respect. It was their way of paying respects to the great emperors and kings.
But
But they didn't replace
this
the
is
gods.
simple epistemology that this hyper materialist and consumerist modernists won't understand. You need to have that kind of mind to actually understand ancient Indian philosophy and society.
so Thomas, what do you think? What is the extent of our Bharatiya landmass? Um,
Oh, bhai, I want to add just one thing
yeah,
about our landmass.
yeah,
The thing is, by this is based on anthropology
yeah,
and what I say, but based on our historical values. I think Thomas would explain it a bit more. But based on our historical values, India actually extends to Indonesia in the south, Japan in the east, and obviously up to modern day Anatolia or Turkey in the west, or you can include Egypt, because historically these lands were conquered by dharmic philosophy. I first in the form of Buddhism, and then in the form of Neoplatonism, because Neoplatonism ultimately derives from Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta, that is Upanishads.
Don't
So
don't
lands.
you think that people will think that we are too much exaggerating?
No, wait.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this in the sense of imperialism. I'm
Yeah,
saying is just like the way you can say French culture has I mean influenced the entire world with its enlightened values of 17th century. In
yeah.
ancient times, India has influenced up to Greece in the west and up to Japan in the east. So historically, this is where our geopolitical sphere of influence lies. So geopolitical sphere of influence doesn't mean we have to go and invade those places with army. Our individual civilization exists within this region. That is Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and then Tibet and Sri Lanka and Maldives, and in between the mainland India. And but apart from that, beyond that, these are our historical sphere of influence.
So
So
Thomas, would you like to explain it more?
Yeah. So in ancient feudal societies, like the kings and the dukes and the counts, they could press a de jure claim on any territory that they thought was theirs. Like so, from taking anthropology and history into account, and from a geopolitical, offensive geopolitical perspective, I hold the radical view that the borders of India is from Ankara to Japan, from to Ankara in the west, and to Japan and Japan in the east, to Indonesia in the south, and to Tibet in the north. And you see, historically, our dharma, and our culture had a very large sphere of influence in the Afghanistan, in Iranian region with Buddhism, and in the Asia Minor region with the Indo-Aryan Mitanni inscription as Mitanni Empire, where our culture and religions had its influence, as you will see in the Mitanni inscriptions that the name of our gods Indra, Mitra, and Varuna were written. So it stands as a proof of our cultural and religious sphere of influence in the Asia Minor and in Iran and Afghanistan. And so from that perspective, I think the situation that India finds itself is in now, as it's been attacked from all the sides. So India should go on an offensive radical geopolitical view that from Asia Minor to Japan is our culture of influence, and if possible in future we should place our de jure claims on this land, like in ancient feudal times, that these are our de jure lands. But I will concur with Zurvan that he said that our actual landmass is from Afghanistan to Myanmar. That these are the lands that we should militarily and directly control. But our sphere of influence, but our cultural and religious influence extends beyond this original landmass. That is from Ankara to Japan.
Okay, so
That's my view.
so any one of you two can throw some light on more vividly on the cultural communication between the ancient Iran and us. How are our two cultures synchronized with each other?
sir,
And what?
firstly, I explain it a bit, and then he explains it a bit. I
Okay,
think it's a very interesting part. We both of us enjoy that part actually.
okay,
So the thing is, by Iran and India they are like two siblings. By Iran, even modern Iran is a very severe nation. Afghanistan is part of India. Kurdistan is part of India. Sorry, I mean Afghanistan. Western Afghanistan is part of Iran. Kurdistan is part of Iran. I mean they speak Iranic languages. So by Iran, when I say Iran, I include Persian speakers, Pashtun speakers, Kurdish speakers, and also the Ossetian speakers that live in the Caucasus. And even you can say Armenians, although they are a separate ethnic group, but they share a great deal of history with Iran.
And
So
the Georgians.
so we can say they are cultural Iranians. So the thing is, the historic Greater Iran and Greater India, they are the siblings from same mother. The civilizational root of both nations are same. And in order to understand it, we have to read both Vedas and the Avesta. And if you read both Vedas and Avesta, you will see that you will actually understand how these two nations actually ultimately separated from each other and became their own nations. So the thing is, Zoroastrianism, uh, this was actually a reformation of old Vedic religion. And so the Indic people, that is us, we rejected that reformation. We wanted to preserve Dharma as it is at that time. And so uh, we needed a geopolitical separation, and Afghanistan's Helmand River became that separation. And so so from in eastern part of Helmand, it became the dominion of the Indic peoples, and in western and from western part of Afghanistan, it became the dominion of Iranic peoples. But before that, they shared almost the same culture, same languages. What anthropologists will say, Proto-Indo-Iranian language, and ultimately uh, this language ultimately branched into two, and these two languages are ultimately the language of Rig Veda, that is Vedic Sanskrit, and the Avesta language, that is the language of Avesta. And so this is the ultimate root of those two civilizations. And now let's come to mid antiquity. So in antiquity, uh, Cyrus the Great's Achaemenid Persia actually extended up to Sindh, and when it extended up to Sindh, I mean, there is a university in Punjab, in modern day Pakistan's Punjab. It's hello, bhai. Hello.
Yeah, your voice is coming.
Are you listening?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so in modern day Pakistan, Punjab, there is our great university, ancient university, Takshila. So in Takshila, when Cyrus the Great's empire expanded to this region, he actually patronized the university. And likewise, when Buddhism became a dominant religion, it spread to Silk Road. And you know, Iranians had the monopoly on Silk Road of Central Asia. And with through Iranian monks who followed Buddhism, ultimately this faith, our culture expanded to Eastern Asia through Iranian monks. So you see the cultural connection even in antiquity. The Iranians are spreading our culture in East Asia among Mongoloid people. And ultimately, even during the time of tragedy, that is the Islamic invasions, the the Islamist armies who ruled over India for 800 years were culturally Persian. Sometimes they were even genetically Iranians, and sometimes they were Turks who spoke Persian language, like you know the Delhi Sultanate or Mughals. And
Yes,
so
yes.
and so Persian is ultimately Persian and Hindi ultimately have the same roots. Persian and Hindi ultimately have the same roots. So even during 800 years of Islamic rule, we were we I mean they forced Abrahamic religion on us, but ultimately the language that was used to in the court, in the cultural level, was a language of Iran. So for good times, so during good times and even during bad times, we were always connected to Iran, and Iran was connected to us. And even during Islamic persecution of Zoroastrians, you know, a small group of Zoroastrian priests, I mean, they left Iran and took shelter in Gujarat region, and they are
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Parsis, and they are the most successful community in India. So,
Because
like,
they are very.
if we are talking about Indo-Iranian relation, this conversation can last up to 7 days. So I can only, tell bits and pieces of it and show how similar and I mean, how similar is our history, how similar is our culture, and how similar we both people are. In fact, I mean, For now, we can consider them different because they have a radically different religion than obviously most of the modern day Indians, and especially Pashtuns are a very problematic people. They have problems of terrorism. But if you keep that aside, I mean, we are ultimately same people. We cannot say actually Iranians are foreigners. We are ultimately same people in that sense. So
Uh,
that's my take on the issue.
mm, Actually, they arrived in Gujarat, what is today called Kandla port, and they were
And,
given.
and, and there was their head priest who told the Gujarati king that we want to stay here, and the Gujarati king told them that gave them a piece of I guess a piece of I guess a cup of tea, and it was full to the brim,
Yes,
and
yes,
told him that it's full to the brim, and you can take we can take no more tea. In that case, the tea will spill out of the
okay,
cup. And
yeah,
then the priest took the cup and then poured some sugar in it,
sugar in it,
and
yes.
then blended it. And then when the sugars be mixed with it, and then he told the king that, well, you see, just like the sugar has blended inside the tea, we will also blend in Indian society.
Yeah, and you know what? During our freedom struggle, Jamshedji Tata has very cordial relations with Swami Vivekananda, and
Yes, but even the very first anti-British movement was actually started by Parsis, because there was I guess there was a British, I forgot his name. So
Dada Bhai,
he
Dada
he
Bhai.
he, he started to cull dogs in the streets of Mumbai, and so Parsis Parsis got infuriated with it because dogs are a very sacred animal in Zoroastrianism. And
Okay.
so this is how the first major anti-British movement in India started.
And actually, Dada Bhai Naroji wrote a book called Reign of Wealth, in which
Yes,
he
bhai.
explained how the British imperialist forces drained the wealth out of here to Europe, and that was also a very constructive work. So, what do you think that in
But even
contemporary?
our first cricket team was a Parsi cricket team.
I don't know that actually.
Yes, cricket, our the thing we, yeah, I mean, all people of India love so much,
Yeah, yeah, we
was
love.
actually first professionally played by Parsis.
Yeah, and you see, IPL is going on today. CSK played very well, by the way.
Yes, bhai. So,
Yeah.
you are telling something. So, what was that?
So I was saying that what do you think that after Islamic Revolution of 79, what do you think, what is the situation in contemporary Iran? Do they still adhere to what they were, or they are just or they have just moved forward, like
By
like
what do you mean by what they were?
what
By what do you mean by what they were? I mean,
Like
what
what
they as
Zoroastrian or their Islamic past?
no, no, no. मतलब as you have explained that, do they still carry their cultural values and cultural heritage, or it is just washed away?
okay, fine. So let me explain this.
एक
So the
हैगा
thing
या
is, the thing is, they lost one thing. I would say one major thing, and that is their historic monarchy. Even when Islam came to Iran in 7th century, Iran never lost their monarchy. I mean, yes, for a brief period, the Rashidids ruled over that territory, but uh, just within couple of decades, the Samanid dynasty in modern day Tajikistan rose up and rebelled against the caliphate. And so Iranians ultimately, uh, even though they couldn't manage to revolt against Islam, but they did revolt against Arabs and then against Turks, and ultimately against European crusaders as well. So Irans have staunchly preserved their historically have preserved their tradition of monarchy. But what happened with the Islamic Revolution is that this is the first time in history clerics actually overthrew the monarchs. It never happened. Especially in Iranic history, it never happened that clerics have overthrown the monarchs. It never happened. So this one part they lost. But if you are talking about names and their culture, you see the thing is Now, I'm gonna use some profane words. The thing is, nobody, even among the Islamic world, nobody is as stupid and as clown as the Indian subcontinental Muslims. I mean, no one is as deracinated and as rootless as Indian subcontinental Muslims. And out of all Muslim ethnic groups, Iranians are non-Arabs. That is, Iranians are most proud of their heritage. They keep Iranian names. They keep they preserve their symbols. They respect their history. I mean, they revere the graves of their ancient pre-Islamic kings, like Cyrus the Great. Then you have
Yes.
you have Sassanid kings as well.
Yes.
And not only that, the greatest epic of Iranian history, that is the Shahnama. The Shahnama is actually chronicle of pre-Islamic kings, and this is their national epic. I mean, mullahs read it as well. I mean, the mullahs who are the who basically run the religious city of Qom. When they go through their education, they have to read the poetry of Hafiz. They have to read Shahnama. They have to read the poetry of. They have to read the words of Iranian philosophers of Middle Ages, the so-called Islamic Golden Ages, and the so-called Islamic Golden Ages were actually
The Persian
90%.
Golden
90%, it was 90% Iranian and 10% were like Arabs.
It
But
was
90
basically a Persian Golden Age.
was basically an Iranian golden age. So what happened is, in Iran, Iranian philosophy, the medieval Iranian philosophy, completely developed alongside Islam. And so, alongside Islam, they obviously lost their pagan past, but they didn't lost their their ethnic pride. I can say they didn't lose their ethnic pride. So they preserved their imperial traditions, their imperial customs, their artwork. You will say medieval Islamic artwork, but modern times Muslims say art is haram. But why is that? Because South Asian Muslims ultimately are following the puritanical versions of Islam, but Iranians developed their own version of Islam. It was separate. It was an Abrahamic at its core. It was Iranian culture at its core. So they continued to draw pictures. They even drew pictures of Muhammad. I mean, it's preserving Iranian. In Iranian National Museum, in libraries. I mean, you will find pictures of Muhammad drawn in Middle Ages. So as you can see, they were under the cloak of Islam, but they preserved their musical traditions, their art, and much of their culture. So this is what I can say about Iran, and even it happened even after Islamic Revolution. And ultimately, what has happened after Islamic Revolution is that Iranians are finally fed up with Islam. I'm not sure if you have seen recent polls. According to recent polls, which is very accurate, it has been conducted throughout Iran, and approximately 200,000 people have participated in that poll. And according to that poll, the 200 people, 200,000 people, 2 lakh in our languages, the 2 lakh people who have participated in that poll, uh, approximately 30% has said that they do not follow Islam. I mean, do not follow Islam at all. They're something else. They are either non-religious or they're Zoroastrians.
Okay.
10% Iranian in recent poll is calling themselves Zoroastrian. In official statistics, the number of Zoroastrian is 0.025%, but there have been a neo-pagan revival under this regime because people are fed up with Sharia law, and now 10% Iranian are saying that they are Zoroastrians. And if you look up at Facebook groups, you will see countless and group after group of neo-Zoroastrian groups. I mean, neo-Zoroastrian pages, neo-Zoroastrian groups, because a lot of Iranians have reverted back to their ancient faith and philosophy.
Uh, so,
And yes.
so Thomas, would you like to add something in it, or it's okay?
Yeah. Well, I'll agree with all the things that he said, that Iranians have still retained their Iranian culture heritage and language, and they have also written some of their ancient pagan Zoroastrian mentality. But I will also criticize the current Iranian government for not doing enough to propagate their culture in the regions that they once had their cultural sphere of influence.
I mean, obviously, Mullah government, so you can say expect
And
that.
obviously, the Mullah governments won't do it. So that's also a very tragedy that the Iranians have solidified their defense against U.S. imperialism and other imperialists that intend to dismantle and attack their civilization. So even after solidifying their defense against the anti-Iranian civilizational states, they still haven't taken any measure to propagate their cultural language. They do not make any films on their ancient history and religion. They do not take any open up any project or give Iranian people incentive to go abroad and teach people the Persian language and introduce them to Shahnama and other great Persian literatures, the works of Rumi, Hafez, and other great poets that Iran once had. So, and as he said, it is true that the young Iranians, Iranians of the 21st century, are fed up with Islam because as a result of the Islamic Revolution. And some of them, actually a very large number of them, want to return to their past Zoroastrian glory. And but the thing is, there is no better alternative besides the Islamic government. That's also a problem. There are no political parties. There are no coherent or sensible political parties in Iran that can be brought into power. They're basically just pro-democracy liberal groups uh, that will uh, de- uh, put a great deal of harm in Iranian culture. They'll do a great deal of harm to Iranian culture and language and heritage. So if the Iran is in a very tough situation. But as Georgian would say, and I quote, for a Bonapartist archaeofuturist Mitra Iran, that's the only plausible solution for plausible alternative to the Islamic government and retain the Iranian culture and heritage at the same time.
So you guys, do you guys see something? Do you guys see some sort of counter-cultural revolution from the cultural forces in the coming 25, 30, or 40 years in Iran? As Urwan has mentioned that in a recent survey, more and more people are they are upholding their cultural heritage. So, do you see some kind of uprising in the coming years? That and that and that uprising should be sanitized away from the Western influence. That is also a precondition, because if
Yes,
West
by
interfere,
100%.
then you
Yes,
know what
yes.
happened.
I would like to say something on this.
Uh,
Uh,
Go ahead.
স্যার একটু শব্দ আসছে,
Yeah,
একটু-
sure.
ভাই, the thing is, Iran, it's inevitable that Iran will see a huge implosion within the country, and there will be huge protests very soon because, according to polls, a third of Iranians have left Islam, and there is probably another third who are Muslims, but they're nominally Muslim, and they don't agree with the regime. They're probably like they're probably liberals, or they're probably anything but uh, not in support of the Sharia government. So what will ultimately happen is that Iran will have protest, but Iran has many problems as well. Like, uh, Iran has many Turkic ethnic groups living in the country. For example, the Azeris. And now the thing is, uh, what's the root of those Turkic groups? The thing is, as I told you, you also know that the origin of the Turks are actually an East Asian ethnic group, and the original Turks are original Turks still live in Siberia, the eastern part of Siberia,
Yes.
and it is the Russian Republic of Yakutia, and Yakuts are the original Turks. So these Yakuts, the ancient Turks, they slowly moved to Central Asia, and then from Central Asia they slowly moved to Iran, and from Iran they slowly moved to Anatolia. And in Anatolia, they actually managed to butcher, because at that time they actually accepted Islam, and that put their genocidal mentality into steroids. And so they basically butchered all the Greeks there and all the Armenians there, and they basically and ultimately the elite was not that they were not that numerous. Actually, to be honest, they were quite low in numbers. That is why the Turkish people look white to begin with, because they're actually white people. They're actually Greeks and Armenians who are Turkified. The Greeks, Armenians, Slavs, Bulgarians, and other people who ultimately got Turkified by Ottoman and before Ottoman Seljuks, but mostly Ottomans. Ottomans are the main culprit. So Ottomans used to, they slowly imposed the Turkic language and Islam upon the white Europeans, and slowly these white Europeans became Turkish-speaking peoples. And
Okay.
within Iran, this is where it gets interesting. Within Iran, the Turks actually developed a kind of Turco-Persian culture. That is, Turks would become Iranians, and because Iran is a very like Iran, we have to agree, Iran is much more culturally sophisticated than Armenia, and this is or Albania, and that's why Turkifying Albanians or Armenians living in Anatolia was quite easy, but
Yes.
Turkifying Iranians weren't that easy. So what happened is when Turks arrived in Iran, they got mesmerized by Iranian culture, and they became Iranians themselves. And these Iranized Turks ultimately also ruled India, and these were the Delhi Sultanate, the Mughal dynasty. These were those Turkified Iran, the Iranized Turks.
Okay.
And the thing is, so in Iran, the last all the last great dynasties of Iran, like the Safavid dynasty, the Nader Shah, the Qajars, even the last Shahs, the Pahlavids, and even the two mullahs of Islamic Republic, the first Khomeini and the
Yeah.
second Khomeini, they are also Azeri Turks. I mean, every single Iranic leaders since last 400 years are actually Iranized Turks. If we check their roots,
Okay.
so these are the peoples who are Iranized, but simultaneously they still retain, most of them retain their Turkic language, and which is Azeri. So the thing is, the Azeris were Iranians, where a group of Turks settled in Azeri region, that is northern Iran and modern Azerbaijan. A group of Turks settled there, and slowly uh, uh, spread Turkish language among the local population, but simultaneously they also pick up the Persian language, and slowly this is how a new Turco-Persian culture developed. And now, why I gave so much background detail? The thing is, now the modern state of Turkey is actually trying to de-Persianize and de-Russianize all the Turks and create a giant Turkic Islamist caliphate, you can say, in Central Asia and even in Iran, and hopefully, according to them, that extends up to Pakistan.
Okay.
And this is actually, most people don't realize, this is the um, this is actually I mean, this is the doctrine of Turkish army, Turkification. This is the doctrine of Turkish army, and this is the basis of Turkish nationalism. So the reason why Turkey people always say, "Oh, Turkey is so secular," but no, Turkey's nationalism has been developed. The modern Turkish nationalism has been developed in such a way that the everyone is army. I mean, everyone is they are loyal to the army. So both Islamists, both the secularists, and even at most of their liberals are also in support their army. So when you support the army, you won't have too much civil war in the country. And what's the doctrine of their army? The doctrine of their army is Turkification. Spread the Turkish language, and annex, recreate the Ottoman Empire, annex, former Ottoman lands, and create soap operas like on Ottoman history, and put a lot of propagandas in it, like Dirili Sertugul, and then spread these shows in areas where there is identity crisis, or there is a vacuum of ideology, like in Azerbaijan, among the Iranian Turks, among Pakistanis, among Bangladeshis, among Indian Muslims. And
Yes.
this is how these people are creating their hegemony. And so, if Iran has a protest in the future, Iran will have significant pan-Turk nationalists who are brainwashed by this Turkish propaganda, and they will ultimately reject their Iranic identity and would want to join Turkey and Azerbaijan, modern Azerbaijan. And this is how Iran can actually get balkanized in the future, because the Western powers will try to fund these kinds of movements. They are already funding these kinds of movements in Iran. I guess you have.
Uh,
Yeah, they also have a very they are also very obsessed with an ideological Turanism. They believe in a greater Turanic state from Anatolia to Kazakhstan, that extends to Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. And their military doctrine is basically neo-Ottomanism, this Turanism, and a greater Turkish Islamic Caliphate. And they all of their, as Jurban said, everyone, each and every one of their people, and it is also, and as I can also say from a personal observation, each and every one of their people, whether secular or Islamist, they believe in a greater Turkish Islamic Khilafat. And I would say this is I criticize actually some people who fail to realize the threat of Turkey and the threat that Turkey poses to not just Russia but also to Greek culture and to Iranian culture. You see, if there is an implosion in Iran, an implosion of revolution in Iran, and this will be a very tough situation for them. And so, if there's an implosion of revolution in Iran, Iran will find itself torn between separatist Turkmen forces and some Western-backed pro-democracy liberal forces. So the traditionalist, the traditionalist Iranian Zoroastrians will find themselves without an ally, and to be crushed in between the Turkish separatists backed by Erdogan's Turkish government in the east, and by Western pro-liberal democracies inside the country.
uh,
And I would also like to add that Turkey is a member of the NATO, and they are also funded by several. They also have connections with Soros, with other several Western liberal organizations that have been actively funding anti-Indian forces inside India. That Turkey funds terrorist sleeper cells inside India, and they also have a very large cultural influence with their soap operas like Dilili Setrugul and other TV series on historical Ottoman Empire. So this is what many people feel. Many people feel and do not intend to address the threat that Turkey poses to the entirety of human civilization, I would say.
yeah, actually you are right, and in last 2 or 3 years, the Turkish influence in India is clearly seen, and most importantly, in the January of this year, the so-called CAA protest, anti-CAA protest, it was partially or wholly funded by the Turkish lobby.
My one thing
Yeah,
I would like to say
Yes,
in this regard,
yeah.
I mean, India should put all Turkish language learning centers into surveillance, every single one of them, because they are these Turkish language centers, just like Confucian Institutes of China. These are the number one, dens of their propaganda. This is where they are spreading not only their language but also their ideology in these centers.
and
Oh,
any form of Turkish media entertainment should be banned in India. Like TV soap operas like Dilili Setrugul, Magnificent Century, these soap operas, so Turkish soap operas should be banned to be in television.
actually, I have two questions more from that Caucasus region, from the Caucasus region.
Yes, by sure.
In the northern Caucasus, there are republics of Russia like Dagestan, Chechnya,
Yes.
and the Arstakhan. What do you think? Who are they people? And first thing first, are they also Turkish?
No, 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 absolutely not. Because the thing is, uh, the people who are living in Caucasus, like the Chechens, the
Yeah,
Avars, and you also have Dagestanis. They
Dagestanis.
are they are actually the native ethnic groups of Caucasus region. So their language is completely unrelated to Turkic languages.
Okay, okay.
So they are the according to anthropology, they have their own language family, which is related. So the Georgians, the Chechens, the Avars, they are ultimately same people, and they have a common lingual origins. And so they are totally different peoples. And so some of them are Christians like Georgians, and some of them have become Muslims like the Chechens.
Yeah, but you know what? But there are some radicalized elements in the Dagestan and in
Yes,
Chechnya.
bhai.
Chechnya had a war. That's another thing. But there are some radicalized elements in Dagestan also.
Yes,
Uh,
bhai. So the thing is, that there are radical elements in Chechnya, and the thing is, Chechnya is a very problematic region, both Chechnya and Dagestan. So there, I mean, Chechnya especially probably has Sharia law, and even though they have Sharia law, their mullahs or their clerics are actually loyal to Russia.
okay, okay,
Okay, so I mean very much loyal to Russia, because actually, if I'm being very honest, there are actually some regions of Russia that is populated by Orthodox Russians that are as Orthodox as Chechnya. So Russia actually has, in various parts of Siberia, Russia actually has places that are Christian and that are as conservative as their Muslim population. And
okay,
Russia's Muslim population again are not as conservative as other Muslims, because they are ultimately Europeans. So they have European values and European cultures. Chechens are actually Europeans.
okay.
So they can coexist parallelly. It's not like France, where literally, a random Sunni from Syria is arriving fresh off the boat, and he's trying to change French culture. It's not like this doesn't happen in Russia.
Okay, okay.
So and Chechens are ultimately Russified in terms of their language and values. So like Chechens, every Chechen can speak Russian because they're the citizens of Russia. So there is no communication gap.
And
Unlike France or unlike Sweden, where you have second generation migrants, who even Germany, where there is large Turkish population who can speak proper German, and they don't assimilate. And what do? Then you have ghettos. And
yeah,
so what happens in Chechnya is that, since Chechnya doesn't have this kind of problem, since Chechnya is not a rootless nation, it's completely integrated to Russia since the time of Tsarist times. It's not even they are not Russian since communist times. They are actually part of Russia since the time of the Tsars. And so what Turkey is doing, that Turkey is actually trying to play a 4D chess. They are trying to throw every kinds of pawns. So they are playing pan Islamism card, they are playing pan Turk card, and at times they also play a secularism card. Like, for example, Azerbaijan in international stage is playing secular card. Azeri President Aliyev is saying that, I'm a self-declared atheist, and Armenian president is a fundamentalist Christian. So all progressive people in the world support me, please, because I'm a progressive. So you see, these people fight with, but I mean, all kinds of propaganda, because they're like that. So what Turkey is doing in Chechnya is that, since Ottoman Empire existed in Anatolia, and we are now the gatekeepers of Islam. Saudis are corrupted, Iranians are corrupted. So if any Chechen wants to live in a true Islamic state and want to free themselves from the clutches of Russia, please join us, and slowly be Turkify yourself. Worship our heroes. So this is how the Turkish ideology spreads. This is why I told you, by this modern Turkish ideology is a far greater threat than Al Qaeda, because Al Qaeda is very linear. Al Qaeda is just puritanical Wahhabism, but Turkish ideology is very complex, and most Indians do not understand how Turkish mind thinks. he doesn't just plays with Islam. He plays with everything. He plays with people's identity, language, customs, even history. He
You
will
know,
say, even
what
Turks, bro, Turks will say that the all the Islamic dynasties of India, since they were Turkic, they are actually related to modern day Anatolian Turks. So ultimately, you guys, I mean, the Ottomans are ultimately your overlords. I mean, Ottomans were the overlords of Mughals. They will say this thing. So can you believe it? So this is how the Turkish ideology works. This is how they're brainwashing the modern day. I mean, the large ignorant masses.
You know what? Last week I was studying and I came across Republic of Kalmykia,
Yes,
and
bhai.
I was so amazed because I didn't knew about it. I was so amazed to
It's
find
bhai,
that
Kalmykia is a Mongol oblast in the European part of Russia.
yeah, and it is Buddhist, I think, and it is
Yes,
a
bhai.
majority Buddhist oblast. No, I think it is not a
But
oblast.
Buddhism is a constitutionally protected religion in Russia.
I think it is a republic. I think it is a republic of Kalmykia, not oblast. Uh,
Republic of Kalmykia. I mean, it's probably counted as an oblast. I'm
Acha,
not. I
okay.
mean, oblast is like it's the Russian version of province. It is the
Okay.
Russian word for province. So it's like Russia's semi-autonomous province of Kalmykia. Things it's like that.
And you know what? I was watching a documentary and it shows that during the communist time, so much of Buddhist peoples were executed actually for following their religion there. But now after the fall of Soviet Union, there are viharas and all these types of things. Uh, so. Uh, so actually, who are these Kalmykian people? Are they also Europeans?
No, my
Uh,
Kalmyks are not Europeans. The origin of Kalmyks is actually the Golden Horde. Okay, so Mongol Empire under Genghis Khan spread to all over Eurasia.
yeah.
When they spread to all over Eurasia, and after the death of Genghis Khan, Mongol Empire fragmented into four parts. So one part became the Great Chinese Empire, the Yuan Empire of Kublai Khan.
Yeah.
The other part became the Il Khanate of Halaku Khan, based in Persia, and the other empire became the Chagatai Khanate of Central Asia under Chagatai Khan, and
Okay.
the other empire became the the empire of Batu Khan, which ultimately ruled from Moscow, and Batu actually converted to Orthodox Christianity. So he
Okay.
was he was also crowned as the Tsar. He was called Tsar Batu. So the thing is, because his conversion was actually political. Mongols never actually seriously practiced Christianity or Islam. They actually remain true to their own culture and Buddhism. So that this is the reason why, even though these Kalmyks are actually the remnant of Batu Khan's armies, follow Vajrayana Buddhism.
Okay. And you know what? These
And even
Kal.
in actually, by the thing is, Mongols actually were today they you only have Kalmykia, but prior to the time of Stalin, actually Mongols had enclaves in all over Eastern Europe, like in Ukraine, in Poland, maybe even Belarus also, and in Crimea. Crimea also had a large Tatar population. But the thing is, some people would complain about this, but I think Stalin is right in a way that Stalin wanted to repatriate some group of people to their own historic homeland. So what he eventually did is he removed the Tatar and Mongol population from European parts of Soviet Union and
Okay.
settled them in Central Asia, their original homeland.
Okay.
And and in and the places where they used to live were ultimately repopulated by the Slavic population. Like for example, in Crimea, which used to have a lot of Tatars, is now 100%, almost 100% Slavic population.
Slavic.
This
Yeah.
is how population was repatriated. But before Stalin's time, there used to be many Mongols and Tatars in European parts of Soviet Union as well.
So you see any negative aspect of this step taken by Stalin, or it was a totally positive thing?
But there were consequences, of course. I mean, during the migrations, many people actually died. But the numbers are blown out of proportion by Western propaganda. And personally speaking, I mean, obviously, I'm not, you know, Trotsky or neo-Marxist in any way in modern sense. I mean, I don't associate with any Marxist group. But if you're talking about Soviet history, I'm a pro-Soviet person. I mean, I support Soviet Union. I support Russian history against the West, against you. I mean, American hegemony, against American empire. And if you see what Stalin did, he's actually saying, compared to what Hitler did, and ultimately what American presidents did. Like, for example, Ronald Reagan destroyed entire civilization. I mean, what was Afghanistan before and after Ronald Reagan? I mean, actually, if Soviet Union occupied Afghanistan, it would have been much better, because Afghanistan would have been like Tajikistan.
Yeah,
Tajikistan, Tajikistan and Afghanistan are same nations, but uh, Tajikistan is proud of its roots. Tajikistan has Zoroastrian insignia as its flag. But whatever Afghanistan, it has nothing. Its entire heritage is gone. Its entire I mean, it's all its palaces, its Buddhist statues, even their history. I mean, Afghans don't even like to call themselves Iranian. Many Afghans, do you know that they have even created, I mean, their fake, I mean, genealogy. So
yeah,
this
yeah,
this
you know what, you know what, when you were explaining this whole design of the Turkish imperialism, I was about to ask you a question. I was about to ask a question to you, that that Afghanistan would play very opposing role in this Turkish imperialism if if they would to happen any day. By the way,
By the thing is, by the thing is, you have to make a difference between Pakistan's Pashtuns and Afghan Pashtuns. The thing is, even if Afghan Pashtuns become radical, like for example, Afghanistan has Taliban. The Talibans of Afghanistan and Talibans of Pakistan actually have a fraction. The thing is, the Talibans of Afghanistan actually want to retake parts of the Pashtun speaking parts of Pakistan.
yeah,
And it totally coincides with the secular Afghanistanis. That is the secular Afghanistanis, that is the Ashraf Ghani government. They are also antagonistic toward Pakistan, and they ultimately want to reconquer those territories. But the thing is still why Pakistan funds uh, Taliban in Afghanistan, even to its own detriment, because Pakistan doesn't want to see a pro-Indian government in Afghanistan. They,
okay.
no matter what happens, they need to keep India in check. It's just basic ABC of geopolitics.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
they want to keep Taliban in Pakistan, even though Taliban will hamper not just Afghanistan but also Pakistan, because they don't accept the existence of Pakistan. So this is what's gonna happen. So
so
the thing is, but the thing is, here the thing. Now
yeah,
this is the view of Afghan Pashtuns, but the Pakistani Pashtuns, a great deal of them are already brainwashed. The Pakistani Pashtuns are very much, Urdu-fied, I would say. I mean, Urdu-fied in the sense that Pakistan's state-sponsored Urdu, that is. I mean, the one language policy.
yes, yes,
So they will prefer their Islamist identity over Pashtun nationalism. Many of them,
okay,
not all of them, but many of them, they have these elements. And so what will happen is that when you are looking for Islam as the single unifying factor, it becomes the fertile ground for Turkish propaganda, because Turkish ultimately the using Islamabad as its pet dog. And so if Pakistani Pashtuns share this kind of mentality, then they will also get brainwashed by this Turkish propaganda as well. Even though what I have seen so far on the internet is that Pakistani Punjabis and Pakistani Sindhis are much more brainwashed by Turkish propaganda than Pakistani Pashtuns or Baluchis, because Pashtuns and Baluchis have much more self-pride than these Indic Muslims. What I have seen is that the identity crisis is higher in Lahore, higher in Karachi, lower
yes,
in Peshawar.
yeah,
But still, if Peshawar becomes completely assimilated to this Urdu culture of Pakistan, then ultimately they will become wannabe Turks as well.
So Thomas, what are your views on Stalin and Stalin's USSR? Because I too find him very nice person. Matlab, he was a truly a good leader. He led his country during World War II. So what do you think about him?
Well, my views regarding Stalin is very positive, and I like him as a leader against the West. Is that he incorporated cultural and historical nationalism into communism, which can be termed as national Bolshevism. He was basically a Nazbol, and Stalin and Hitler actually had many similarities. They had many mutual benefits that amongst themselves. Like Stalin also persecuted the Jews, and as you know from there, they had a Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact regarding Poland.
Yeah.
Stalin invaded the eastern side of the Poland, and Hitler occupied the western side.
Yes.
You see that some of the military generals and geopolitical advisors that Stalin and Hitler had, they saw many. They saw that they have since they have many similarities, they can share form a pact or form a pact for mutual benefits, and that's exactly what they did with Poland. But Hitler, he was very misinformed about the Slavic people. Is that some SS generals they whispered anti-Slavic propaganda into his ears, and his racial theory was basically anti-Slavic. And so, as for exactly for this reason, and due to his the ideology of Lebensraum or living space, that he wanted the Germanic people to expand into the east.
By one thing, most white nationalists don't know this, but Hitler actually considered Indians to be superior than Slavs.
Yeah, Hitler had a priest named Savitri Devi. I don't know if you have heard about her. Savitri Devi was an informant for Hitler in India, and she was a priest. She was actually kind of the head priestess of Hitler, and she had lived for many years of her life, and married an Indian family.
Okay.
And she is very revered in dissident right culture among the actual Hitlerist right culture, right? That's in the right circle that's here right now. So, Stalin and Hitler had a bulwark against the West, but for due to Hitler's idiocy, I would say, and obsession against the Slavs, he attacked the Soviet Union, and basically what initiated what was his own demise. And quickly after the defeat of the Nazi Germany, Stalin quickly realized the threat of the liberal West, that is the America and Britain, and he
Yeah.
quickly occupied the Western territories, and he formed what is known as the Iron Curtain. He divided the Berlin and formed the Iron Curtain, a bulwark
Yeah.
against Western liberal degeneracy, against the
Yes.
traditional West, against the traditional East.
Yeah.
So Stalin, the reason that I like Stalin is that he was very pragmatic in geopolitical strategy and policies. He
Yeah.
supported, yeah.
He was very pragmatic, and but you know what, when you will read about the pro Trotskyist history books on Stalin or their commentary on Stalin,
Sorry.
they show Stalin as some kind of dumb unintellectual people, dumb and unintellectual person. But Stalin was not like that. He actually written many short books. I was going through his book called Nationalism, Marxism and the National Question. It was very well book.
Yes, but Stalin has written a lot
When
of books.
Stalin has written a lot of. Actually, there was I found a book once in
But the
one.
thing, but the thing is, by most of this, these Maoists, this so-called Marxists of today, the postmodernist liberals, they all they never read books of Stalin, because it's very. I mean, they always say Stalin betrayed the revolution.
Yeah, yeah.
Because of
and And you know what?
I
I
mean,
was so amazed
even though the
that
person they idolize, for example, Marx wasn't a liberal. And Trotsky was the, you can say, the prototype of liberal, but still he was not liberal. Even Trotsky wasn't a liberal. I mean, what we call liberal is or neoliberal, or the so-called the westernizers. These are totally the products of United States, and they actually these movements were created in the 60s and 70s. This has nothing to do with Germany or Russia. I mean,
and
it has its roots in Weimar Germany, but it doesn't have
yeah,
roots in Frankfurt School or Moscow School or things like that. It has its roots in New York. So
and
so this is the true
you know
story.
what? And when we see that Stalin was a true proletariat guy, by the way. And what I was about to add that about Stalin, that actually it slipped out of my mind. So
The reason you don't see books of Stalin and books and pamphlets of Stalin in communist stalls in Indian subcontinent is because that they know that the Stalin would have shot them to death. These degenerates, LGBTQ plus lunatics that call themselves communist these days.
The
They
thing
are
is
actually not
the thing is by
communists. The thing
the
is,
thing
they are
is
actually not communists. They're actually liberals.
the thing is by
yeah,
the very geopolitical concept of tankism, that is the ideology of that is the name for Stalinism. The very geopolitical concept of Stalinism is that socialism in one country. And what is one
yeah,
country? The historical country. Stalin
yeah,
unified the historical Russian Empire.
Yeah.
yes,
and 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 if someone actually believes in Stalinism, he needs to embolden.
He needs to be an Indian nationalist.
He needs to be a very, very, I mean, belligerent Indian nationalist who needs to attack Pakistan and Bangladesh.
Yeah.
This is
and
the
no,
this is
and
how
why?
Stalinist India should be. He needs to be extremely belligerently nationalist, and he needs to attack Pakistan and Bangladesh. This is how he can be a true follower of Stalin.
Drive your tanks into Islamabad and Dhaka and hoist the red flags on top of it, on top of the parliament buildings. That's what Stalin is. That's what is Indian Stalinism will be like. And I would say they know it, and that's exactly the way. And they also know that Stalin would have shot
because
them.
because these
And that is
Marxists are breaking
exactly,
India forces. They are not building
yeah,
India forces. They are breaking
that
India
is
forces.
Yeah,
exactly why they
They
don't
they
revert
they
Stalin
don't.
because they want to use Marxism to divide India. They
Not to
want
yes,
build India.
they want to distort Marxism and divide India, not build India.
yes, yes. And
They
you know
don't care about the
what I
proletariat. They
find?
just want to brainwash the proletariat and then brainwash them to break India and then turn this these so-called these brainwashed people, all these brainwashed minorities, brainwashed lower caste into the slaves of China and Islamist forces, Pakistan and so on.
Yeah,
And you
and
know,
I would like to appeal to the Indian right wing politics that not to call these people communists, call them as they are. They are liberals. Because an actual communist, as per Marx, the policy and ideology of Marx, they would very much adhere to the concept of Akhand Bharat to firmly and rapidly propagate socialist ideology in all of the subcontinent, every place of the subcontinent. But they do not want that. So it is actually
Their socialism is not economics. Their socialism is using profane language against Indian culture and Indian
yeah, fly
Indian history, Indian
yeah,
philosophy. This is what they mean by class struggle,
yeah,
or they are so called.
bring out marches with the rainbow flag, fly the rainbow flag anywhere, be a feminist, be a man and wear a shari everywhere to afford feminist ideas. But they
yes,
call themselves communist, and the right and the Indian right wingers, they also because of they also think of them as actual communists, but they are not actual communists. They are liberals. They're brainwashed liberals.
I mean, by
and
even look at China. We don't need to look at Russia. Even look at China. The Chinese Communist Party has unified the entire historical influence region of China. Not just historical China, but also historically influenced region of China, like Xinjiang, or like like Manchuria or like Inner Mongolia. They have completely incorporated those places. I mean, this is
And
CCP.
Yeah.
yeah,
And then
Because
yes,
you
yes.
have Indian communists who say India must be divided into 50 parts, and
Yes,
they worship China,
so
Chinese
yeah,
expansionism.
a true communist would believe in a greater India.
and you know what? I want to put some observations here. When you see RSS, okay, and when you compare RSS way of working and RSS thought process with what I will say, Stalin was much more. He was much more hard and much more iron. He has much more hard iron fist. But RSS thought is also, you know what? There is an ideology that we call Ekatma Manav Darshan. You know what Ekatma Manav Darshan is the it is the ideology of BJP and RSS. Ekatma Manav Darshan profess that we have to take care of the person who is last in the line, matlab, who is the most downtrodden. First serve them. एंड इन हिंदी वी कॉल्ड इट अंत्योदय कि हमें सबसे पहले अंत्योदय के जो पंक्ति में खड़ा हुआ अंतिम व्यक्ति है उसके लिए अच्छा करना है. प्लस दे बिलीव इन अखंड भारत. They believe in serving proletariats, and most of their cadres are from the proletariat society, and are from the proletariat section of the society. So I think they coincide. मतलब if we war that मतलब if we just put aside this dialectism uh, concept, then you know what RSS thought and the Stalin thought of a unified country is much more alike. And the Indian communists, they are like divide India into 15 countries, 16 countries. There are different nationalities. Like Tamil is different nationalities, so divide it into an independent country, and divide Bengal. Some my friend was hello. Is my voice coming?
Ha
Yes,
ha
bhai. Yes,
ha
bhai. We are listening.
Hello.
ha.
You know
Sun
what?
rahi hai.
My my friend today suggested me that the central government should bifurcate Uttar Pradesh into five states because it is too large. मतलब, the population of Uttar Pradesh is 220 million right now, 22 crore.
Yes, bhai. In fact, Uttar
So
Pradesh is the
he said
largest
that
country subdivision in the world.
yeah. I think so. The population of Uttar Pradesh is more than Mexico actually. Uh, so my friend suggested that the central government should bifurcate this state into five parts. What I replied to him that, you know what, India, in India, Uttar Pradesh is the center heart of the Hindutva movement. Dividing Uttar Pradesh means dividing the Hindutva movement into five different parts.
Bhai, not only that,
And
in
if
fact, modern day
Hindutva
Uttar
movement,
Pradesh, the borders of Uttar Pradesh is actually coincides with the ancient Madhya Desh region of India. So it is the heartland. It is the Hindu heartland, you can say.
yeah, it is a Hindu heartland, and right now in contemporary politics also, it is the heart of the Hindutva movement. And you know what, dividing the states like Uttar Pradesh and Maharashtra will lead into the more disintegrative tendencies in India. Like we see, you know what, like we see in the Punjab. Before 19, I think before 1969 or what, b- b- uh, the Punjab was Punjab, Haryana, and Himachal Pradesh. When the central government bifurcated Himachal Pradesh and Haryana out of the Punjab, the separatist tendencies in Punjab arose. So it is not good for us. So I just told him that it is not good actually to bifurcate the large states because large states actually serves in the unity of India right now. So what do you think about it? That how can we have talked that we should just expand, but you know what? Today we have different types of tendencies. Like in the South India, there is a movement called Dravida Nadu movement. fueled by all this Aryan Dravidian divide, and we have a soft separatism in Punjab also. Basically, the separatist elements live in Canada and UK, but there is a soft tendency there also. So, any of the two, you guys can you can put your view forward that how can we curb this out from our Indian society? How can we
Sir,
crush these tendencies?
hi, let me add some points to that. The thing is, Tamil Nadu. We have to. Every state of India have separate kinds of separatism. For example, Tamil Nadu has a different narrative. Punjab has a different narrative.
Yeah,
Punjabi
yeah,
separatism is mostly religious,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Tamil separatism is mostly cultural and lingual.
Language. Yeah,
So the thing is, first of all, there are two mistakes according to my opinion, that is, there are two mistakes that Indian nationalists or Hindu nationalists generally make. That is, when Tamil nationalists accuse them of being Hindi chauvinists, they tend to be very apple they tend to become quite quite pandering to that propaganda. They tend to distance themselves from the fact that they are not promoting Hindi. Now the thing is, I want to say this thing. I If actual Hindi chauvinism, if it exists, I will hate that as well, because it's detrimental to the diversity of our culture and languages. And to be honest, uh, even among the modern Indian languages, there are many languages that are far richer than Hindi. Like, for example, Bengali and Punjabi, these languages are actually richer than Hindi. Sorry, but Bengali and Punjabi doesn't have one thing, and that is a unifying factor, being a linked language. Hindi is the language of the heartland of India, and Hindi is the link language. I have traveled length and breadth of Bihar. I have traveled to West Bengal, and Hindi was written everywhere, in rail station, everywhere. Because if someone is from Punjab, if someone is from Gujarat, he won't understand the Brahmic script of Bengali, but he will understand Devanagari. And this is how Hindi actually links the Gujaratis and Bengalis in that way. And even if you go to South, in every rail station there is a Hindi signboard. So, and even those people who hate Hindi have actually learned the Hindi language. So it's at this point, it's totally meaningless, because those who are hating on Hindi languages, they are learning Hindi for jobs, and it's totally on their own. Nobody's forcing them. They're learning on their own. So if you can learn something on your own, why are you saying that it's being imposed on you? I don't understand this. And secondly, uh, Hindi. You need to have a local language that is. You need to have a lingua franca that is local as well. Yes, English is international. Yes, English is a part of our modern day culture as well, because unlike many other places, we have been British colony. So English was officially used in our region. So it is our linked language as well. But the thing is, English is our necessary linked language, but not cultural. Hindi is our cultural link language, just like Russian is the cultural link languages of all Slavs, and it also links Central Asians as well. Persian is the cultural link language of all Iranians, and similarly, Hindi, people must respect this fact that Hindi is in modern day. Hindi is, in ancient time it was Sanskrit, in medieval ages it was Prakrit, and in modern times Hindi is our link language. And what we can do now, we should first educate people to respect Hindi, and we should also promote, in official documents, we should promote a Sanskritized version of Hindi. And at the same time, what we should do is we should give greater respect to at least Tamil, because I think Tamil nationalist movement wouldn't have exist if Tamil was also a language of the center, whether you use it or not. But Tamil should have been the language of center in 47, according to my opinion, because that would have thwarted the Tamil language movement, because there was already a kind of fertile ground in the south, that after some time there will be some kind of movement like this, especially after the rise of Periyar and the language movement. So what Delhi could have done is make Tamil a language of center, and that's how southern people could have felt that, okay, we have a say in center as well. So what do you think, bhai, about this?
Yeah, you know what? Actually, when it was started during our independence, they tried to form a union of Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala and all. Now the issue is that Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, and Kerala, there is no issue of Hindi. Even you know what?
Yes, bhai, I know that.
Like Uttar Pradesh is the heart of Hindutva movement in the north, you can say. Karnataka has now emerged as a as a heart of Hindutva movement in the south. You not in the southern part of India.
Yes, bhai.
So the issue remains only with the Tamil, and actually you are right because you know what Tamil is. It is such a rich language, and
Yes,
it
by
is
the Kural, the Thiruvar Kural, their
yeah
text,
yeah you
third century BCE,
yeah,
quite ancient.
and it is. Uh, it is somewhat equal to the Sanskrit. So you are right. It should be given a true because if in the central government you can include you can include English with Hindi. Actually, we could also have included the Tamil language also, and by
It would have
including the
solved everything. In my opinion, it would have solved everything.
yeah it but we have 21 official languages also in the seventh schedule.
Yes, bhai.
We have 21 languages also, by the way. So the work of central government, like the parliament proceedings and all these things, can be addressed in the Tamil language also. Not only in Tamil, it can be
Yes,
addressed
bhai,
in.
in all languages. But people need. I know why. The thing is, we know, because we know everything. We are actually educating people, so we know everything. And I have been to India. I
Yeah,
know what India is like. Nobody judges in India for speaking bad Hindi. Everyone enjoys speaking different languages, because that this is how Indians behave. This is, they take pride in their richness. So this is, I mean, in monolingualism is something that that is completely frowned upon in India. And so and so the thing is, people does, I mean, those who are brainwashed by propaganda, they don't see what's happening outside, what's happening in real life. They want
yeah,
to see the document, and
yeah,
then they want to see the document, and they then then sorry, wait. They then just dream about it. Only then they become happy about it, because finally they feel validated. And so sometimes, paperwork and documents become important. So
yeah,
if Tamil is given that right, at least, in document, then they
yeah,
will finally be satisfied with it. They will
yeah,
feel contented. So this is how I feel. This is a strategy that needs to be taken,
yeah.
according to me.
Yeah, actually, you are right because you know what? Symbolism is also very important in the public life. You have to show some symbolism. You have to do some symbolism also. By
Yeah.
the way, there is a department in the Home Ministry of India called Bharatiye Rajbhasha Vibhag, and Rajbhasha Vibhag look after the national language. That is English and Hindi right now. And the Rajbhasha Vibhag is led by the Home Minister of India, and currently the Home Minister of India is a Gujarati speaking Amit Shah. So, in the last month, when we were celebrating the Hindi Day, the National Hindi Day, actually Amit Shah he requested all of the country to at least learn because by learning, uh,
Yes,
actually,
but we noticed that, and there was a huge controversy as usual.
yeah. I don't know. There was a huge controversy only in Tamil Nadu, and the, and the controversy in the Chhattisgarh or Punjab that was fueled by some fringe elements of Congress and all that. But in Tamil Nadu, there was a genuine there was a genuine outrage about it. And you know what, it has to be solved, because you know what, South India is now on the path of Hindutva, and Karnataka is leading this path. You know, the Kerala case is very different, because in Kerala we have large population of we have large population of Christians and Muslims, but the Hindu there, they actually understand things. Andhra Pradesh is also understanding the thing, you know. But in Tamil Nadu, there is a gap of leadership also, because in Tamil Nadu, the both large parties, the AIADMK and the DMK, actually they both are Peri-right party. Okay, they are influenced by the ideology of Periyar. And you might have heard about Rajnikant. Rajnikant is
Yes, bhai.
Yeah.
he is floating a political party in Tamil Nadu. So they are trying to normalize this. So let's see what happened. But I think Tamil Nadu is very a difficult case. But by now the secessionist movement is died out. The movement is only about language right now. But I think in coming days the main problem, the Punjab can become the main problem, because after opening of the Kartarpur corridor, the pro-Pakistani tendencies is day by day increasing. So, so Thomas, what do you say about this? The Punjabi state of India, the Khalistan movement in basically it is not in India, but it is fueled by the Sikhs living in the in the
In
Europe
Canada,
and
in
yeah,
Canada mostly.
yeah, in Canada mostly.
Well, I would like to first. I would like to say some things about the so-called Hindi chauvinism and give some insights into it. You see, Hindi chauvinism, if it actually exists, I'd very much despise it. But the thing is, it does not exist as much as the liberals or the people in South India claim. And if it does, I very much think that every person should first learn their mother language and then the regional language. The mother language should be given an importance, but the regional language also should be given an importance to communicate between the different people living in a same country and to mitigate the language differences that we have. For example, if you ever go outside South Asia, like in Gulf countries, and as you know, every Arab treats any South Asian as a whole in a broader sense. Anyone from Pakistan, Bangladesh, or India, they treat them as Hindustani as a whole. And if you ever talk to them and suppose you don't speak English, they'll talk to you in Hindi. Doesn't matter if you're Pakistan, if you're Punjabi, Marathi, or Bengali, or from South India, they'll speak to you in Hindi because to them you're a citizen of Hindustan in as South Asia as a whole. And even if you speak to Afghanis, they'll also speak in Hindi to you, not in your region, not in your mother tongue or in your regional language, but they will speak to you in a language that is perceived as the lingua franca of of our civilization. That is Hindi. So,
Yes,
so the thing is that we have to understand the importance of Hindi as our lingua franca to communicate.
भाई
And
जो बात हिंदी में होती है उतना मीठा और कोई बात में नहीं होता.
हाँ, बात यही है.
सही बात है, सही बात है.
सही बात. इवन अगर आप सऊदी अरबिया में भी जाए, मक्का में और मदीना में, और वहाँ की जो पुलिस ऑफिसर्स हैं, वो आपसे अगर कोई जरूरत, अगर किसी भी जरूरत में वो आपसे हिंदी में बात करेगा. वो नहीं देखेगा कि आप पाकिस्तान से है, बांग्लादेश से है, हिंदी और इंडिया से है, आप बांग्ला में बात करते हैं या हिंदी में बात करते हैं, वो ये नहीं देखेगा. उसके अकॉर्डिंग टू हिम, यू आर एन इंडियन, so I'm going to talk to you in Hindi.
Yeah.
So
भाई आप चाहे और ना चाहे विदेशी भी आपके ऊपर हिंदी ही थोपेगा. तो ये रियलिटी से
यही है. So आप जितना भी चाहे या कि आप जितना भी चाहे इंग्लिश में और दूसरी कोई लैंग्वेज में बात करे, वो नहीं मानेगा, वो आपसे हिंदी में ही बात करेगा.
And the thing is, by for example, just look at us. I mean, Bangladesh is quite. I mean, not only just in terms of language, actually, in terms of religion, it's only against India, but in terms of language, I mean, it takes quite a lot of pride in its
Yeah,
Bengali nationalism. You know that.
yeah, yeah.
मैं एक बात बताता हूँ बांग्लादेश में
So, so
बांग-
Bangla, there is no way that someone, someone can actually learn Hindi or Urdu in schools. I mean, there is no script, there is nothing. But how do we learn? I mean, those who hate them learn from Bollywood,
yeah,
and most of them actually, I mean, even though they hate India, they watch Bollywood movies, they watch Pakistani songs because of Islamic Brotherhood. So ultimately they learn Urdu and Hindi.
ए-
But
मैं
then
आपको मैं
but then there is us. I mean, their Hindi Urdu is very much broken. They actually understand it but can't speak it that well. But for example, I mean, the two of us. I mean, we actually love the language because we always feel that it's the language that connects our civilization. It's the language that serves as the lingua franca of our civilization. It links all of us. And from childhood, I actually fell in love with the language. So I mean, every time if I see something in any intellectual discussion or anything in Hindi, I would listen to that. And this is how my Hindi vocabulary actually developed. So this is how it happened.
मैं आपको एक बात बताता हूँ बांग्लादेश में बहुत सारे लोगों को हिंदी आती है और हिंदी समझ में आती है बट द थिंग इज वो लोग हिंदी में बात नहीं करना चाहती है बिकॉज दे आर एंटी इंडियन
Okay.
बट द थिंग
Yes,
इज
that's the thing. That's the thing.
they actually understand हिंदी very much
Is
क्योंकि
the
हमारे
reality of anti-Hindi movement. You actually understand it.
समझ में आती है किसी को बोलना भी आती है पर नहीं बोलता हिंदी में बात नहीं करता तो यही उसकी एंटी इंडिया जो सोच है यही उसकी एंटी इंडिया सोच है
तो यही यही भाई, हिंदी हमको कोई भी नहीं सिखाता, हम खुद सीख जाते हैं क्योंकि ये हमारा अंतर का बोली है। तो अंतर का बोली आप खुद ही सीख जाएंगे, ये किसी दूसरे व्यक्ति आपको नहीं
हमारी
सिखाएगा।
हमारी जो जनरेशन है हम 2000 अर्ली 2000 की जो बॉलीवुड गाना है फिल्म से ये सब देखकर बड़े हुए ये सब सुनकर बड़े हुए तो ये सब सुनते देखते ही हम हिंदी हमारे जनरेशन के बहुत सारी बच्चों को हिंदी आती है हिंदी समझ में आती है और 2010 तक भी हमारे नेबरहुड्स में हमारी गलियों में शाम ढलने के बाद ही हिंदी गाना बजता था सब जगह में हिंदी गाना बजता था पर वो
आप सब
कल्चर
स्मार्ट हो गया तो सिर्फ रैप ही बजाते हैं, इंग्लिश रैप
तो
बजाते हैं।
तो तो आज वो कल्चर नहीं है आज हमारी शाम ढलने से शाम के बाद जो हिंदी गाना बजाने के जो कल्चर था वो कल्चर खो गया है और आज तो सिर्फ टर्किश गाना बजता है इंग्लिश रैप गाना बजता है तो ये हालत है इस देश की और साउथ एशिया की एज अ होल
That is the influence of
और इसी तरह की तो हमारी जो हिंदी में हिंदी को लेके जो मोहब्बत है तो और हिंदी में जो हम एक जो मीठापन नजर आती है तो इसी तरह की इसी सोच को ही जो लिबरल्स और जो लैंग्वेज नेशनलिस्ट हैं वो कहेंगे कि हिंदी हम पे मजबूर कराया गया है कि हिंदी उन पे मजबूर किया सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने बट reality is that we are not forced to speak Hindi. We actually love the language.
yeah. Uh, so I think we should just finish now. I think it is
And I
around.
would like to state one more thing is
Yeah,
that I'd like to introduce a strategy of globalist liberals regarding this language nationalism is that they tend to they want to exploit the language differences in India and in Russia. There are there are Bengali Bangla language nationalist movements. There are Tamil language nationalist movement, Punjabi national language nationalist movement. They want to exploit that, and this is the strategy of globalist nationalism, something that can be termed as GlobeNet, as termed by Zulvan.
Like for example, same thing is happening even if you look at the conflict in Balkan region. For example, they all speak same languages, but ultimately they are being divided on the basis of religion. For example, Serbian, Croatian, and Bosnian, they are same languages, but
Yeah,
just different religions.
yeah,
And then you have, and then they try to do same thing in Spain. I mean, they try to uh, divide the country and try to fund Catalonia nationalists.
yeah. That Catalonia.
So it's I mean they have tried in West, and now they're trying in India.
India. To use this language nationalism and language difference as a weapon against India to divide the country. And in Russia, they're using the same strategy, these globalist liberals.
So in Russia, what are the different languages apart from Russia, which are
Why
being?
Russia has many languages,
Okay.
many. Russia is a very lingually diverse country.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but the thing is, almost the entire population can speak Russian, and they use Russian as the link language. And not just in Russia. For example,
The former Soviet is
there is a very there is a very funny thing. I mean, there are even memes about it. The thing is, even in Central Asian states, the Kazakhs don't like Uzbeks, even though they are Turks. They are different kinds of Turks.
Okay.
But the thing is, both of them love Russians. And so when they communicate with each other, for example, a Kazakh is communicating with an Uzbek, they communicate in Russian. They don't use their Turkic dialects.
and
So
that's what the liberals in the West whine about. That why are we speaking in Russian? You should be speaking a regional language and hate Russia. Why are you speaking Russian? That's what bothers them. It gets under their nerves.
although if you even think about it, I mean, they actually should speak Russian, because that Central Asia is not the actual Turkic homeland. There was a time when this region was populated by Scythians, who are genetically more related to Russians than the Turks. So if Turks have settled in that region, they should at least preserve the language and culture of that place. So Russian language is actually the traditional language of Central Asia.
Yeah.
That's
Just
the truth.
yes. So actually, I think next week we should talk.
Yes, but actually we talked about so many things, but we didn't cover the major part, that is the history
Buddhism.
of Buddhism and how our kingdoms formed and what's the propaganda against it. We didn't
I
talk
think
about that much.
I think today we just talked about the cultural.
Culture and geopolitics and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. You can say cultural geopolitics, like of things.
But we should arrange a meetup very soon again
Yeah.
and talk about these things, because this is more important actually.
Yes. You are
I'd
right.
also say some things about regarding Iranians as our siblings in the next podcast. I